All right, so I'm happy to be up on stage here with Ken Bolden, VP and Executive Producer from TSN, or the Sports Network Canada. So we're going to be talking about redefining content strategy, combining winning content curation with personalized, relevant messaging. So Ken, welcome on stage with me, and welcome to the conference today.
Thank you.
So why don't you give a little bit of introduction yourself and your role, and then we'll jump into the first questions.
So you've already said my title, VP Exec Producer. I'm in charge of studio production, digital, radio at TSN, so everything from SportsCenter to Overdrive to our .ca content. I was heavily involved in social media, launching at TSN. That's now run by Dave Crixt, who's doing a fantastic job, really smart person who I learn with all the time. So that's sort of day to day. I've been very fortunate to work on really cool things, Vancouver Olympics. I'm the exec producer currently of our soccer coverage, so going to get to do the domestic. I was in Qatar last year, or in 3 years ago, I guess now, and going to get to exec produce our World Cup coverage next year in Toronto, Vancouver, and obviously all 104 games, which is a lot of games to do in a tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you're very busy right now with playoffs and two of the major sports as well. So we talked a little bit about the media experiences in your industry versus maybe, let's say, that in retail. So talk about a little bit your comparison and your thoughts on that.
So years ago, when I first got to be a senior type producer, and I asked to start going to sales meetings because I wanted to learn more about the industry, and so I was going to these sales meetings, and at that time, there was some, what I would say, old-timers that had worked, that had scanned, like, I'm talking people that lived during expense accounts and boozy lunches and all of those things that used to happen in the sales world. And I asked them a whole bunch of questions, and I think they kind of got tired of how many questions I asked. And so this one grizzled, and I always want to exaggerate and do like the cigar, but it really wasn't like that. But he just said, look, we're like a shoe store. We're like a shoe, so don't overcomplicate it. We have a product. We market that product. We sell that product. Yes, we got to find out what's kind of, is a store in a mall? Is it, where is it? What's the display going to be? Are you going to put the discount items in the back? Yeah, that's all, but at the end of the day, we're no different. Now, I think the world's a little more complicated than that, but certainly for me, that always was the focus. With all this noise going on, focus on what you're doing, which is we make and acquire content that we act as inventory, and we sell that on any platform we can. That is what TSN does. Don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's very important, obviously, the long time saying KISS, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Because that's the key, is understanding that the audience is still an audience buying a product from that perspective. So when you think about, or in this case, rethinking content strategy, how did the CX or customer experience play, or audience experience play into that, those kind of rethinking efforts?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us was data points, which again, I'm a creative guy, that's how I got it. But as you learn this stuff, you start to pay attention. So, look, the digital age has given us a wonderful gift in sports TV, because before, when we got ratings, we go, okay, there's 100,000 people watching that, but there's no qualitative measure to that data. I don't know when they watched. We just didn't have a lot of data points. But now, as soon as there's a game on, we have social media that tells us the best. It gives us emotional quality data. Are they pissed off? Because sports TV is about emotion. I make you mad, sad, happy, pissed off. You're part of a group. It's us versus them. All of those emotions we are trying to elicit out of our fans. So I think the digital age has given us great tools to pay attention to what resonates with people. How quickly do they react? What are they sharing? Look, sometimes destructive and not so good, but on the sports side, it does give us a lot more data points.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I've got 3 boys that are in their very low 20s, and the 2 younger don't even watch actual sports. It's all the highlight reels. They're watching it as it's happening, but just in their preferred method.
Watching, sharing, commenting,
yeah.
And that's great data points to know what we should deliver more of and how we should deliver it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think about, and maybe you could walk us through the process of identifying, because just like a shoe store, right content, right customer. When you think about making that connection, what tools or signals are most helpful for you?
So I have a saying with my editorial team that the story is the story. And for journalistic parts of our job, that's very true. So if a star player is injured, we're going to tell that story. And yeah, we can tell it differently, but there's no getting away from the star player's hurt and how it's going to affect the roster. There's some nuance to things. We were talking before about OKC and the NBA playoffs, and look, if you're watching TSN right now, we are hammering the fact that two prominent Oklahoma City Thunder players are Canadians, Shai Gilgeous and Lou Dort, fantastic players. And we are purposely keep telling you they're Canadian so that all of you who are Canadian, we love our country, are going to watch that and you're going to get engaged because you think, I'm cheering for them now. And oh, by the way, the Indiana Pacers also have two Canadians. So, hey, look, NBA Finals, we could have 4 prominent Canadians playing in the finals, which is pretty cool. But look, we make all kinds of different content. And I was going to give this example because when I asked you before about, there's some marketing people in the room. So years ago, we worked with the UFC. And UFC are fantastic marketers. They are very good. They're buttoned down. They're great to work with. But this is probably 8-10 years ago or so on and so forth. And they were giving us some assets for our digital platforms, which were basically film strips with a listing of their fights that were going to come up. And they were giving this, and we're not going to put that on Instagram because every time we did, we got it's the wrong format, right? And so it doesn't look right. And when we looked at the results, nobody shared this. There was no likes, there was nothing. So we told them we're not going to do this anymore. Now, they went to marketing. Well, how do you say no to your partner? And luckily at TSN, editorial controlled social media, so we just said no, I'm not doing that. What we did work with them then is to do content that was specifically for the format of Instagram. Give me square video, I need to be square. I need the first shot to be compelling because people will swipe away. There are some things that happen on Instagram that are unique to Instagram, so the content has to be formatted for that platform. And once we started to do that, then we got great engagement. We saw that path get a lot better for that content. The effort we were putting in was giving way better results, and that's ultimately what you're trying to do, I think.
Yeah. Again, you got to fit the opportunity with the audience, right? From that perspective. So as you think about the transition, because you talked about a heart, you want to get that emotion. Sports, especially being so emotional. So how do you, an example maybe where you redefine content strategy, from getting a passive customer into more advocates or evangelists? Because you talked a little bit about that, but go into a little more detail.
Women's sports. Women's sports has arrived in a way that I think we could all agree has not happened before. Even though, at TSN, we're quite proud of. For years and years, we had the best women's sports schedule and big ratings. If you talk about the Scotties, women's curling, women's international hockey, early players of the WNBA. But we get good ratings for the Scotties and international women's hockey. Now, again, think back to what emotion is that. That's our flag. That they're playing for our country. They're playing for your province. They're playing. So there's some emotion attached to that. But all of a sudden, you have the gift of Caitlin Clark, as I like to call her. And, man, first of all, she's awesome, like truly awesome. But I think, again, we've gotten past we should do this versus I just either hate or like Caitlin Clark. And that we saw it drive the narrative, that women's sports has arrived. Let's talk about it. And you talk to the people in the industry of women's sports, and they're the same way. You need heroes, you need villains. You need people willing to be villains. You need who live an authentic life that they're doing what they do. But I think Caitlin Clark crystallized it was you either love her or you hate her, and that is a good thing. And I know that's hard, but I think she's so awesome that she wears that role, and she doesn't care, and she's again, I'm a huge fan in case you didn't notice.
So obviously you're making money off of it too, so it's okay to be as well. But you talked about the hate side, right? I mean, we always want to put forward this positive, but to your point, how would, this is a little off script, but how would you think about, when you think about like hating someone, especially a professional athlete that maybe has an attitude or whatever, but that's good for business, how would you say, is there translations of that to the business world that you can think of that would be, almost contrarian views of how to look at, creating customers from a similar vein?
I mean, I can't off the top of my head because again, the leverage, the content we're making is, okay, go back to the shoe analogy. Okay, so what kind of emotional response am I going to get out of buying that shoe? And ultimately, you're trying to figure out emotion. So if it translates, it's about an emotional response to, and I assume all you marketers are trying to do that. You're trying to get an emotional response out of doing something, buying something, having an experience. What am I? I'm going to go on vacation. It's all about human emotion is the driver, I think, between a lot of things.
I know that we've seen over the years, there are marketing examples where a company will take an approach that it completely almost undermines everything they've done to date. And from that, it generates enough almost backlash for making the change that it creates that counterintuitive approach. I don't think Coke actually meant to do that back when they did New Coke back in the 80s, but it was the best thing they could have ever done is to try to change a product that everybody already loved because it created that backlash approach. So I think there's similar examples, at least from a marketing standpoint, where you can take those approaches as well from that perspective. So when you look at, we got to do it again, when you look at AI and we look at content creation now, because again, there's a lot of conversations about how AI can create content at scale. Now, I think a lot of companies are misusing that because they're firing a lot of marketers and saying, all right, you do the amount of 5 others that used to do, but because it loses some of that power. But what are you seeing in content creation, personalization, and especially storytelling from that perspective?
Yeah, look, AI is not going away. So we're going to have to figure out the ethics of it. If you think of reporting or, is it accurate, is it truthful? In a world where sometimes that's up for debate, but really shouldn't be. That's my journalism part of my job. But I think AI is going to further democratize content making. I mean, you think of a young Steven Spielberg or George Lucas or Spike Lee with the tools of AI and the computers that they have now, and think of what they would have created. Because now all of a sudden the price point's not the barrier. I can dream up a 25-foot shark, and I can make it real. I can recreate Saul's Pizzeria or whatever I'm going to do in my own computer with a kid doing this. So I think that's the real thing is, man, we're going to see the most creative people on earth be able to have access to tools that are going to have them make content that looks 1980 Hollywood-esque. If we watch these old movies and you think of pretty amazing special effects, and now they look kind of, 40 years later, they don't really look all that great. But AI is going to make going to democratize that further.
And I think power being in the hands of whoever's using it, as well as taking people that don't maybe have that training, now they can do it as well. So when you're looking at your team and you're looking at the content creation team that you have, first off, tell me the size of your team and the numbers of people that are helping do that.
So I have about 200 and some reports, but again, that's across different groups. The people really using AI are going to be our right now so far are really just our creative team, which is they make features, they make content. We're going to use them a little bit as we go forward in the CFL upcoming season for a little bit of animations. You're starting to see it starting to be used. Really haven't seen it really in terms of news creation at all at this point, because again, I think there's some real ethics behind that everyone's going to have to figure out because it's coming. So
talk a little bit more about the ethics. What's your perspective on that?
Well, again, first of all, there's the accuracy thing. There has to be some fact checking still. I kind of don't look at, I don't look at it in absolutes. So everyone here goes to Wikipedia, and you go to Wikipedia to look up something quick, and you look at it, but how accurate is Wikipedia? I mean, through the years, we've had to go in and fix people's bios and things like that, but it's a low threshold. I go in, I kind of read about it, do whatever I do. Don't have to do a lot of research. The worries about the thresholds is how are we is there going to be some mechanism by which you get a blue check mark? Maybe that's a bad, but that we're verified that this is actually true. I just worry about what's still to come to develop about how we're going to know whether what this is showing us is actually true. Photos, you think of the ramifications of altering that we've already seen. We've already seen in political campaigns. So how we verify things, I think, is going to be a real issue.
And I think it's key because, I mean, you look at some of the examples you're probably thinking of as I am as well of content that gets out there. I know even on the low end of negative impact, scrolling through social media, I see these trailers for movies that aren't real movies.
No.
But someone is deciding to create a trailer for something they thought would be cool, and it's getting better and better to where you can't tell the difference. And but I want to continue pulling that thread a little bit because we talk storytelling. So you kind of talk love hate, you talk storytelling. I mean, one of the things when you look at any movies out there that are based on a true story, it's like how much is based on a true story and how much is real. Obviously, sports being, you do content that are sports, and then you have the shows that are about players and about sports. So how are you looking at, kind of bridging that gap between the storytelling of the sports that have either occurred or are happening, along with the sports themselves, which is the kind of that raw content?
I think you bridge it for, if you looked at a sports consumer, so what do they do during the entire day? They get up, they look at scores. We try and map human behavior to a certain extent in terms of so if you're talking about a complex story, like a real 13-minute feature that's a tearjerker that's just going to make you love this person, and okay, go, I'm cheering, they're now my person. But okay, so where do I distribute? Do I put that on YouTube? How do I make sure that people can see it? There's a whole bunch of complexity in that, but ultimately, I think I need short little snippets to get you to do what I want. Again, elicit that emotional response, and I need long form content. I'd like to do more of it, but it's expensive, and in a day where we're really watching our money, that gets expensive. So you got to make choices. Not to mention just the amount of sports that we cover compared to 20 years ago, where it was 4 sports, and now there's 4 sports, and half those sports have women's side of it as well. So there's just more to do across the gamut.
Do you cover cornhole?
We actually on our Ocho channel, yes, we get from ESPN, yes.
Pickleball, I mean, yeah, it's
the Ocho,
it's crazy how many different shows.
TSN Plus, $8 a month, it's great.
Absolutely, everything's now a major sport. So my example is, coming from Denver, Colorado Avalanche, and Gabriel Landeskog's story coming back, because it's parallel. He's coming back to play in the playoffs, and then at the same time they're showing his story over the last 2 years of recovering. It's kind of crazy. So we're definitely gonna have time for questions. So be thinking of that. So, but we already talked about a little scrolling and digital, especially being such a new part of what we do. Consumers are distracted. They're overwhelmed with options. We just said there's all these major sports now. So how is TSN really trying to cut through the noise with a true voice and value?
We are trying to prey on your human emotions. I mean, if there's any theme that you haven't got from me, is I want all of you in here to be mad, sad, happy, pissed off about something. Sports. And look, the challenge is, of course, that with this fracturing of content that we all know about. I have a 25-year-old son who's more apt to play his PS5 than he is to be watching sports that I watched. And yet there's much more access points because, when I was a kid, I had to walk to the magazine store to buy my hockey news. My son can just go on and get anything, like literally get anything in the world. He can get sports content about. But I don't control all that anymore in a way that used to be. There's so many different touch points. So we need to be in those touch points that we think give a lot of return, and whether that's we're generating it ourselves or we're paying for to be there for the marketing part of our shoe store. And when I'm there, it has to be about emotion. I just believe that 100%, that yes, there's the factual journalism part, but watch sports TV and tell me that we're not trying to get you. We're trying to get and figure out how to get you to do what we want you to do, which is watch and care about this and yell at the TV and be passionate, because that brings fandom.
Sports, the place where you can yell at your TV with permission. So absolutely, and you go to that story, and again, it's coming from Colorado. I love to hate SGA because he took the MVP away from the Joker, but that's all right.
Okay, you got Jamal Murray, you got a Canadian on
That's
Denver
true,
too.
absolutely.
So you're good.
So open for questions. So who's got some questions for Ken?
Did such a good job telling you all about it.
So are there any taboos from going after emotion? So again, you just talked about you're trying to even piss people off. So is there anything you do try to avoid?
Has to be authentic. Yeah, I mean, there's be a good human being. Be authentic. Don't manipulate their message. I think that's a big one. If you have some athlete that is having an issue or talking or let them. It's their words. It's their. You have to be accurate. That's just journalism. We do try and walk a line. I remember years ago, we licensed a song called by 3 Days Grace called "I Hate Everything About You," and it was on a tease for a U.S. Canada World Junior game, and it was awesome because we had all these shots of them hitting each other, and it was very emotional. It was great, but afterwards we were sort of they're 17-year-old kids, and we're did that go too? We had the debate. Did it go too far? But it was awesome. It was awesome. So I'm not sure we did, but we certainly had the debate.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I went to the U.S.-Canada game that was in Montreal for the Four Nations.
Yeah.
Great game, of which everybody booed during the U.S. national anthem. But to their person, everybody there was apologizing when in line and with me to get food. So everybody, sorry about that. So to that point, driving to the emotion, and I think you're right, the honest, because you can splice together legitimate footage that makes people sound like a villain when they're not trying to be as well. So you've got to focus.
I think generally villains. Again, that's a strong word, but look, through the years we've seen NASCAR kind of go up and down in popularity, and like most sports do. But look at the success of Drive to Survive. I mean, I thought Drive to Survive, one of the best things was it further defined the storytelling about who are you going to cheer for? Who are the heroes? Who are the villains? I hate Verstappen. He's just not likable, so I hate him. But lots of people love him. Same with NASCAR. NASCAR's peak, it was us versus them. You were either an Earnhardt fan or you weren't. Look, I don't necessarily get. I still don't really get car racing. But you go down to those races, and it's serious, emotional, which that drove their ratings. And Tiger Woods, you either loved him or you hate him. Every week drove ratings because you just can't. You have to see him.
Yeah. So any last thoughts to leave with this audience about really translating this content topic and the emotion topic into more traditional businesses?
Well, look, I think it's about, can you figure out what data points do you have that you can figure out what that is? And if you're all marketers, you do that better than maybe I came to it late, but I just think in this world where that's still what drives humans to be humans. It's the differentiate. It'd be interesting to see how AI tackles human emotion and whether it can replicate it and create it in such a way that it'll be, again, maybe scary.
Yeah, if nothing else, I know it's starting to be able to predict emotion. I mean, there's literally technology now that's using facial recognition and from a security standpoint, what's already in place to really understand emotion, even in a retail space. When people are walking in or standing in line, or as they're exchanging, with it. So it's definitely becoming much more aware in what is the emotion, as it can read triggers.
Yeah.
So it's probably not far from the other side. Last chance for questions. Oh, in the back. Oh, two in the back. All right, we'll go for those.
Hi. I'm thinking about the broadcasters in live sports. Like they used to, at least there used to be this idea that they were preparing for broadcast. They were doing interviews with players, all that kind of stuff. How much is sort of real-time producing going on behind the scenes with what they're talking about or what they're poking at vis-a-vis the emotions and the flow, or maybe what people are posting online? How tied into that live are you?
I mean, the crew in the truck and the announcers would be somewhat, but they're prepping. They're prepping to hear the storylines that are going along, and then look, it's live. So all of a sudden, again, I'll use injury. Just your star player gets injured in the first 10 minutes. Well, like that whole plan's out the door. So you have to be able to pivot, and that just from really knowing. Like they're well prepared when they're doing that. Does it? I would say, for instance, it's interesting. Anthony Stolarz gets hurt in the first round, seen throwing up on the bench, and then goes underneath. And our reporter Chris Johnson, who also reports for the Toronto Star, was the one who put on X. He's going to the hospital. Which was the first report of that. So that obviously went up to we weren't doing that broadcast, but obviously went up to the announcers who reported, hey, this is what's being reported. So they do look at it, but most of it's on the playing field, and they're sort of talking about that. They're not worried too much about what the noise outside is. That's more for the studio shows afterwards and figuring that out.
Yeah. Can you speak a little bit about targeting content in terms of for different demographics, in terms of age, for example, for a 60-plus-year-old viewer or like a under 20-year-old viewer, and how is AI coming into place and how is that evolving in sports? Yeah,
so we're really not there yet. We have 5 channels, and then obviously our digital channels on TSN Plus, and we play. We have the games we have, but I can imagine a world where, that's what's going to happen. Is you're going to pay $100 for all sports, and it's going to deliver you what you want, how you want, when you want. I don't think we're that far away, especially for non-live games. The personalization and how it delivers content, I think, is going to see rapid advancements in that area. But for a live game, I mean, most of it, and I know we're all frustrated by it, is because we need 10 different subscriptions now to get what we used to get with one cable subscription. It's a great lie about the value of cable. Everyone complained about cable, and I'm thinking oh my God, do you guys realize how good cable was? You got everything, movies, sports, everything for. Seemed like a lot of money at the time. Well, look at your bill now between Netflix and everything. We got to watch that show. Oh, we got to watch that. So it'll be interesting to see. But really, it's not really. We're not targeting content for a specific group. We are creating content specific to platforms that we think fall into. So doing a lot of work on YouTube, for instance, on different content. To get our brand on YouTube. Look, there's some revenue, but again, it's not what we do. We make and create content to drive, mainly subscription and advertising revenue.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I can imagine too that color commentary has become a lot easier with AI because all the statistics on players and things like that is now even easier to access from that perspective. So yeah. So help me thank Ken for a great session.
Welcome.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next.